Somewhere over the past 10, 20 years, we learned that more is better when it comes to our health. More effort, more discipline, more structure, more hustle, more supplements, right? And I want to offer you a completely different idea today. And it's not a new idea. It's just the reminder that the answer is often less. I've been in the health and wellness industry now for 30 years, and I will tell you my most successful clients are the ones who are consistent with less, done better, with full presence. Welcome to your daily hit of grace and grit, your quick dose of inspiration to kickstart your day. I'm Courtney Townley, and here is today's hit. So we live in a world that, of course, markets and rewards complexity. Like I said, more supplements, more workouts, more tracking, more optimizing. And I see this all the time with the women I work with. They come to me with these beautifully elaborate plans that they can't seem to stick with, which is why they eventually end up hiring me. Because life intervenes and their whole plan collapses when something they don't expect shows up. And the problem was never their commitment. The problem was that the plan required too much, too consistently, with too little room for them to actually be human. So today we are talking about simplicity as a strategy, a potent strategy, not a compromise, but a strategy. So David Allen has a great quote that says, "You can do anything, but not everything." Yeah, that's the whole game right there. Totally summed up what we're going to be talking about today in this episode. Every time you say yes to one more thing in your health plan, you are implicitly saying yes to a system that is closer to collapsing under its own weight. And again, we're almost encouraged to do this, like keep adding things in, right? Add new supplements, add a new way of eating, add a new exercise program, add a new workout outfit. I don't know. There's always the adding. And we don't focus enough on the subtracting. What is the bare minimum that will move the needle? The question has never been, can you do this? The question is, and will always be, will you still be doing it in 6 months? There's a concept in behavior change research called minimum effective dose. And it's the smallest input that produces the desired result. In pharmacology, it means the lowest dose of a medication that achieves the therapeutic effect. In health and wellness, it means the simplest, most sustainable version of your habits that still move the needle. It's so funny. When I was back in my days of fat loss, I would have clients that I worked with where every week they would check in with me and I would tweak their programming based on the results they were getting or not getting. And a client would often come to me for a check-in and admit that they hadn't been compliant. So they hadn't done what we had talked about in the previous week's session, but they still wanted me to either add more exercise or reduce their calorie load. And I was always baffled by that. Like, why the heck would you want to add more challenge when you haven't even been compliant with what we talked about last week? Right? But again, it's that our brains are just so conditioned to want more complexity. But there's no reason for complexity if you can't be consistent with basic measures. So the minimum effective dose of exercise for most midlife women is not 6 days a week. It's not twice a day. It's not intense training. Research consistently shows that 2 to 3 sessions of strength training per week, combined with regular walking and regular deep sleep, And hydration and good food choices produces significant improvements in body composition, in your cardiovascular health, in your bone density, and your metabolic function. All great things, right? More than that, doesn't proportionally multiply the benefit. We think it does. But again, why would we add more complexity when we haven't been consistent with the basics? And when we are consistent with the basics, most women that I have worked with are like, wow, this actually works. Yes, it does. And you often, if you're constantly adding more, at some point you're increasing your risk of injury and recovery demand. And that's something I think we don't take note of often enough. So the minimum effective dose of nutrition is not a complete dietary overhaul. I know the diet industry loves to sell you on that idea, but it's usually 1 or 2 or 3 keystone habits, like eating protein-forward meals, like consistently hydrating, like eating a lot of vegetables, eating regular meals throughout the day. These are not complex things, but they ripple out and improve everything. So I just want to offer you that simplicity is not where beginners start. It's actually where experts are created. You will never meet an expert in any field who has not mastered the basics consistently. Not ever. So this week's challenge to you is just kind of audit your health plan. What are you doing right now to improve your health and wellness? And what is the one thing, if you had to boil it down to one thing, if you did it consistently, would move the needle more than most other things? You know the answer to this. You might try to convince yourself you don't know the answer, but you know. And your answer is going to be different from my answer. But what is the one thing in your health plan that if you did it consistently, you know it would move the needle? I don't want you to list 10 things. I want you to get down to that one thing. And then do that one thing with full commitment for the next 2 weeks. Own it completely. Be all in. And see where it gets you in 2 weeks. And then, and only then, if you've been compliant, if your progress stalls, then you can add the next thing. But if you're getting progress, why add something else? Right? If you're making progress, if you're moving in the direction you intended to go, ride that wave as long as possible before you start throwing other things in there. Complexity will always be available to you, but consistency is a much rarer skill. And you build consistency by starting with what you can actually sustain. So chew on that, and better yet, practice that. If this stirred something inside of you, imagine what a whole book of clarity and courage could ignite. The Consistency Code, a midlife woman's guide to deep health and happiness, goes even deeper into the mindset and practices that create real, meaningful change at midlife. Grab your copy today over at theconsistencycode.com and keep the momentum alive.